without a doubt, Tennessee is a very Republican state. But nonetheless, you can see lots of issues where the state was not acting what you might think is an extremely conservative manner. So, our poll shows there's bipartisan support for gun safety reforms. We showed there's support for restrictions on abortion. But yet sometimes we see extreme actions by the state legislature. For example, recent discussions about whether or not to decline federal funding for education. Right? That's a movement that, like, when we ask the public, there's no support for that at all, unless you ask among those Republicans who self-identify with the Make America Great movement.
If you ask people how liberal conservative they are, almost 50% of the state identify themselves as conservative, about 30% moderate, and 20% liberal. Those are roughly the figures. But if you ask the citizenry how conservative they think their fellow citizens are, when we asked in 2017, it was basically 14 points higher than it actually was. So that people think the state's citizenry is more conservative than they really are. That number increased further in this latest poll. Nearly 70% of Tennesseans think their fellow citizens are conservative, yet it isn't even quite 50%. So there's a big gap there.
A lot of the issues that the state legislature is taking up is really contrary to public opinion that we detect broadly construed. And that's why the approval of the state legislature remains in the low 40s and kind of not particularly high among independents in particular, but even among some Republicans. In fact, when we look across issue by issue, the only really group that there's a strong support for the state legislature is among that subset of Republicans that self-identify with the Make America Great movement. So even among Republicans themselves, the state legislature seems to be more reflective of some Republicans than other Republicans, and you can kind of really see that the policies that they're pursuing, that even though they're supported by that small group, is pulling them away from the massive public opinion in the state of Tennessee.
The state is conservative, but it's not super conservative. It is not extreme. And that's really an important lesson that comes from this poll, and we can show it in all different kinds of angles.